Namaste, Married Volume 2, Book 2, Rudra Samhita Part 5, Chapter 46, Andaka fights in the Shiva Puran. Vakratana Mahakaya, Surya Kuti Samhita, Nidaveganam Kare, Sadakaya Sur, Mekadantai from Vakratana. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Sakshat Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurudeva. Hariom Tatsat. Sanat Kumara said, the king of Dechas, skilled in interpreting what he hinted at, seized his mace and hastened along with his army to the entrance of the cavern. The terrible demon Gila, who could not be overwhelmed even by the foremost among the gods, was placed ahead. After reaching the cavern of the Lord Shiva, the Decha attacked with his weapons as refulgent as thunderbolt. The others showered weapons on Viraka, and yet others on Parvati, the daughter of the mountain. Some smashed the beautiful entrance, some destroyed the flowers, leaves, fruits, and roots, the hearty watersheds, and the garden paths. A few stirred up joyously the sunny peaks of the mountain. Then Shiva collected his army. The infuriated trident-bearing deity called them together, the terrible living beings, the gods with their armies, including Vishnu and others. Immediately after being called, the gods came to Shiva and stood near him, with palms joined in reverence. They came with chariots, elephants, horses, bulls, cows, camels, mules, excellent birds, lions, bhutas, tigers, deer, boars, sarasa, birds, fishes, crocodiles, other living beings, scattered flies, serpents, rending cremation grounds, along with ghosts and spirits, divine chariots, lakes, rivers, and mountains. When the gods had taken adequate rest, along with their vehicles, the trident-bearing Lord Shiva sent them to the battleground with the steady and chief resolve on victory. They fought with the army of the Lord of Dechas, including Gila, terribly and unrestrainedly, as if the end of yugas had come, but they were all devoured in the battlefield angrily. In a trice, all of them, including Brahma, Indra, Vishnu, sun and the moon, were swallowed by Vighasa. When the armies were devoured, only Viraka was left behind. Leaving off the battle front, Viraka entered the cavern, bowed to Shiva, the eloquent, but distressed Viraka then acquainted the destroyer of Kama with all the details. O Lord, your army has been devoured by the Decha Vighasa. Vishnu, the preceptor and elder of the three worlds and the destroyer of Dechas, has been devoured. The moon and the sun, Brahma and Indra, the bestowers of boons, have been devoured. All these, Yama, Varuna, Vayu, and Kubera, have been devoured. I, the humble one, alone am left behind. What is it that I have to do now? The Lord of Dechas, along with the Dechas, is invincible and hence rejoiced. Vishnu, the Lord who became invincible after tearing off Hiranyakshipu, the son of Kishapa, with his claws, had the speed of wind and a terrifying demeanor. He opened his mouth wide and began to blow off the three worlds, although the Lord was subservient to the good. When the matter stood thus, he was cursed by the seven sages. The virtual lords of the worlds, you will be crushed by the Dechas for a long time. Then they were requested by Vishnu, through loving words conducive to his benefit, O great sages, when will I get rid of this terrible curse? Thereupon the infuriated sages said at the time of war, You will be hit with fists and struck with terrible arrows. When swallowed by Vighasa with wide open mouth, you shall stabilize yourself in the Badari forest, in the holy residence of Shiva, the cavern, and shall then be freed from sins. Thereafter, in accordance with the curse of the sages, he roams every day in the battleground, very hungry, and swallows the dachas and becomes delighted. By using the science of reviving the dead to life and chanting verses of hymns, Shukra revives the dachas killed by the gods with full vigor and joy and cures them of their hundreds of wounds. It would rather be better to give a poor lives at the battle than yield. You, the witness of everything, have been chosen by us as the guide in the accomplishment of our task. Sanat said, on hearing this, from his excellent son, the Lord of Pramatas, the Lord of the three worlds, meditated for a long time. He performed an incomparable miracle by chanting Saman songs. He laughed, assuming a body as resplendent as the sun, and thereby dispelled the darkness. When the light spread, the sage Viraka fought again with the dachas of deformed features. He who was created by the excellent sage, after swallowing powdered rock, and who had fought the battle and even conquered the Pura Asura previously, was immediately swallowed by the dacha, together with Nandini, who carried sharp arrows, spear, and swords, who was the chief of warriors and hundreds of excellent sages, the great receptacle of laws, possessed of mental and physical restraint and great courage. On seeing this, Lord Shiva got to his bull and faced the dacha Vighasa, repeating the divine mantra that compels the disgorging of what is swallowed. He stood there, keeping the bow in readiness and the arrows as powerful as thunderbolts. Then the sage Viraka came out of the mouth of Vighasa, accompanied by Vishnu and his army. The lotus-born Brahma, Indra, the army of Bala, the moon, and the sun were also disgorged. Thus disgorged, the delighted army fought a great battle again. Thus the army of the dachas was conquered. But Shukra revived the dachas slain in the battle by the virtue of his science. The preceptor of Danava was then bound like an animal and brought by the gunners before Lord Shiva, the destroyer of Tripuras, who swallowed him. When Shukra was no more, the entire residence of the Danavas was shattered and destroyed. Everything was suppressed by the gods. When the battleground was strewn with plenty of Bhutas, who eagerly devoured mouthfuls of the corpses of the dachas, with headless trunks, dancing, holding sharp arrows and spears in their hands, with intoxicated vitalas, with birds of firm claws and beaks, and with wolves, their jaws filled with dead bodies, the founder of the family, Hiranyakshipu, fought the battle for a long time, and was defeated by Vishnu, Shiva, and Indra. When the exhausted army entered the nether worlds, nooks and corners and hills and seas, Andaka, the foremost of the dachas, who, in his height of fury, had harassed the gods and who could split the universe, was divested of his haughtiness by Vishnu by terrible blows from his mace. Since he had secured boons, he did not leave the battleground, although his body had been afflicted much by the Lord of the Gods by terrible blows and hits. Then by means of weapons and missiles, trees, mountains, and waters, he defeated the gods. Then he challenged the Lord of Pramatas, roaring loudly, fighting steadily by means of various weapons that felt on the battleground. They were exhausted. Then the Asura inflicted pain on Parvati and Shiva by means of uprooted trees, serpents, thunderbolts, and other weapons, and by indulging in deceptive practices. In order to conquer Shiva, the dacha of as great strength and intelligence as the destroyer of Tripuras created another juggler, a cheat. The nature, whose madness had helplessly been aggravated by hundreds of wounds, could not be killed by the gods, though his body had been shattered by plenty of weapons and missiles. Many undercuts, originating from the exudations of his body, with hideous faces resembling his, pervaded the surface of the earth. He was terribly pierced with the trident by Shiva, the enemy of the Tripuras, the lord of Bhutas, whose body blazed like fire at the end of a kalpa. When fresh army cropped up from the army slain by Shiva, from the hot drops of blood and cut pieces of flesh, from the wounds of those killed, Vishnu called away the lord of Pramathas and intelligently assumed the face form of a hideous woman, employing his yogic knowledge. It had a very terrible and hard aspect, characterized by several arms. Angrily the Lord Vishnu projected from the wings of the army and stood ahead of the gunners. The goddess stood high in the battlefield, covering up the entire ground by her bare feet. She was eulogized by the gods, induced by the Lord. The hungry female form devoured the army, drank the hot blood of the Dechas, and made the battleground marshy. Then only the chief of the Dechas was left. Still he fought on with Shiva, beating terribly with his palms, knees, legs, nails, face, arms, and head. Although his blood had been sucked dry, he remembered the traditional heroism of his race. Afterwards he was quietened by the lord of Pramathas. His heart was pierced, he was staked to the trident, he was held aloft in the sky like a long pole. Half of his body, the lower one, was dried up by the rays of the sun, the other half was drenched by clouds, attended with gusts of wind and heavy downpour. His body was subjected to all sorts of torture, shattered and scattered like flakes of snow in the rays of the sun. His limbs were torn asunder. Yet the foremost of the Dechas did not die. He eulogized Shiva. The delighted Shiva, ocean of great mercy, joyously gave him the position of the chieftain of his gunners. The lords of the worlds worshipped the Lord of Pramathas at the end of the war, with different hymns, pleasing and significant. Vishnu, Brahma, and others too eulogized him with stooping shoulders. They were delighted and happy and shouted cries of victory. Shiva spent the time rejoicingly in the mountain cavern in their company. Honoring the great and excellent mountains by the bestowal of gifts, he dismissed a few of his amsas, parts. Regaining the delighted daughter of the Lord of Mountains and the sinless son from the terrible jaw of Vigasa, he sported. Footnotes. (306) A particular kind of sacred verse intended to be sung is called Samaveda. That's the Saman songs. 307. The Asuras followed the traditions of the warrior class which they inherited from their ancestry. Thus they belong to the Kshatriya division of the fourfold Aryan society. Here is today's reading of the Shiva Puran. Om Prabhu Prananatam Vyom Veshwanatam Jagannatanatam Sarantabhajam Buddhiktam Vesharam Bhutanatam Shivam Shankaram Shambhu Meshanamide Om Kapura Gauram Karanavartaram Sansarasaram Mujagindranahadam Satavasantam Mridhyarvinde Pavam Bhavami Saitam Namani Om Namah Parvati Pate Hara Hara Mahadevi Ki Jai Om Jum Sapura Samtram Kamaja Sugandha Pushti Varan Om Bharat Janti Mangala Kali Mitra Kali Kapalinda Kali Shosha Hariam Tatsat.